Hey everybody! So today we are going to talk about the inconjunct or the Quincunx or the Quincunx. Here is the card for it. I've seen it pronounced Quincunx or Quincunx, so I'll probably be using a few different pronunciations because I can't pronounce shit. But essentially what this is an aspect in a natal chart that you might see sometimes that is 150 degrees. You'll see planets or planetary bodies or like the north and south nodes, or not the north and south nodes together, but you might see like the north node in conjunct something else or whatever. But they're 150 degrees from one another. And essentially on the card we have adjustment, challenge, and lacks common ground as the keywords. Awkwardness is another good one for this because these planets, there is an awkwardness because the planets are not seen and felt at the same time. Oftentimes that is the case. Yeah, oftentimes that is the case. So just giving you like an example, this is one that I've seen a few times for sure. And this one feels difficult to me just because of virtue of what it is. Sometimes I'll see the moon and it will be in conjunct the sun. You know, this is difficult because the sun is ego, it's identity, it's life force, right? And the moon is your emotions, among other things. That's what's needing to be expressed with the moon. So when you see the sun in conjunct the moon, you're looking at somebody whose sun and moon are not easily able to express themselves at the same time. Sometimes you'll find that one of these planets wins out over the other one. Really depends on what's going on in the chart. So for instance, like somebody's sun might always be felt while the moon is neglected, or somebody's moon is always felt and their sun is neglected or not felt, you know, not seen and felt. Sometimes you'll see it to where the person, they might see and feel their sun, they might see and feel their moon, but they don't see and feel them at the same time. So there might be breakthroughs where the sun and the moon can be felt at the same time. This might be via transits, you know, or what have you, but they can be, you know, there are times where they might be able to be seen and felt at the same time, but not all of the time. They're just not integrated all the time in the person's makeup. Whoa, got really windy. Another one that I see, just another example, would be like the sun in conjunct Saturn. So the person's ego, identity, life force, what the sun is needing to express, might not easily see the Saturn as responsibility, its mastery, its authority. It can also be limitations and boundaries. So the person may not see and feel their sense of self, right? Like their identity, at the same time that they see and feel what they're responsible for. This can be an issue, or they might not, or they might be able to see and feel a whole bunch of responsibility with Saturn, but leave themselves out of it somehow. It does depend on what the chart looks like, right? As to which way you should go with this. Because like, let's say somebody has they have a Leo rising, let's say. And let's say in the case of the sun, Quincunx the moon, let's say the moon was in the 12th house. In this case, with the sun being the chart ruler with the Leo rising and the moon in the 12th house, I would probably think that the sun happened to win out more often than the moon, or the sun was what was felt more than the moon. That's not universal, right? But that might be the way that my mind would start going. I would take everything else into in the chart into consideration, but this would be kind of where my mind would first go. With a case like that. Now, if you didn't see anything like that, where it seemed like one planet would win out over the other, then you might be thinking, okay, so this is a situation where neither planet wins out, but they're not seen and felt at the same time, right? So the person might see and feel one planet sometimes and see and feel the other planet at other times, but not necessarily at the same time. So what do you do about this? What can you do about this particular aspect? Well, I feel like the first thing that the person that has like an inconjunct in their chart can do is actually think about those planets. Really think about those planets. Think about when they really feel those planets the most. Do they feel them, you know, do they feel one more than the other? Do they you know, all of the time? Do they feel like or do they feel like sometimes it is they feel one and then they feel the other, but they don't necessarily feel them at the same time? Definitely some self-reflection here, I think is a good thing for sure. Another thing that you can do is look at the midpoint. The midpoint is very, very important here. I don't see enough people work with midpoints like this, but I think it's an important thing to have in your arsenal for chart reading, whether that's your own chart or somebody else's. Because the midpoint, I have found that the midpoint with planets in an inconjunct aspect, the midpoint can be where by house and how by sign can be where the adjustment can take place, where the awkwardness can be eased, and where and how these planets can see and feel one another. And it also might be transits to this midpoint. That's when this aspect is kind of lit up to where one planet can be, to where not just one planet is seen and felt, right? So I would definitely look at that because that I think that's incredibly important for working with these and for helping people be able to integrate both planets or whatever is inconjunct in the chart, helping them to integrate them together so they can be seen and felt at the same time. Like I'll give you a for instance, just so you can see kind of how I would do this. In my own chart, this is my chart. In my own chart, I have the North Node is in Aries in the 4th house, and I have Mars in conjunct the North Node. Mars is in Scorpio in the 11th house. Now this is difficult because Mars is the planetary ruler of my North Node. So the planetary ruler of my North Node doesn't see and feel the North Node as easily. Or as clearly, they don't see and feel one another at the same time. Often, I have found the midpoint in this case happens to be at 15 degrees Capricorn, 15 something Capricorn, in my 1st house. Now this one happens to be conjunct my moon. So when you're working, let me say this: when you're working with midpoints like this, and the midpoint happens to conjunct a planet. That planet is a wonderful vehicle with which to work that midpoint out, if that makes sense. You won't always get off that won't always happen though. Sometimes that midpoint won't be conjunct a planet, and that's okay. If you are looking at planetary conjunctions to midpoints, I would use like an orb of 2 degrees, applying and separating. But you can use whatever you want. That's probably how I would go with it. But like let's say that moon wasn't there. Let's say my moon wasn't there, conjunct that midpoint. I'd be looking at 15 degrees Capricorn, 1st house, midpoint. So 1st house is the house of self, among other things. So the way that those planets would be seen, or the way that the planet, because I'm just talking about Mars and the North Node, which is not a planet, the way those two could be seen and felt at the same time is through my sense of self in Capricorn ways, like with authority being a Capricorn notion, but self-authority because it's the 1st house. Masterfully, responsibly. And I have found that with these two things in conjunct, that actually does fit. The midpoint actually does really help here. Because I guess without going into too many details, I can give you an example of what I mean. Mars, Mars in the 11th house and in Scorpio, Scorpio energy is a lot of things, but it can definitely involve like, okay, if I really, really care about you, if I really, really love you, I'll go to bat for you if you need me to. I won't hang you out to dry. I won't do any of that. I will go to bat for you. With you. Let me say it like that, with you. I won't fight your battles for you, but I will definitely stand next to you and help you fight them. I will do that if I really, really care about you, if I really, really love you. I have found that I don't often receive that in turn from those same people. So I've stopped doing that quite so much. Not that I need to, not that the people in my life are necessarily people that need battles fought or need help fighting battles all the time, but I am willing to, if I really care about you, if I really love you, and I feel like you're getting fucked around and you feel like you're getting fucked around, I'll stand next to you and help you. You know, I'll help you out. That is the kind of person I am. But I do find that, and not that the shoe is on the other foot very often, because I don't need people to help me fight battles very often, because I really don't have that many battles to fight. But when I have found that those same people in my life, and I'm thinking about one specific person, would just fucking hang me out to dry. And it's like, you know, I have to sit and think about that. Like, why do I do this? Why am I this way? You know, so, and I have a responsibility not to be this way, a self-responsibility. So I have to, you know, if somebody needs me to do that, or kind of ask for my help with that, or without even asking for my help with that, you know, I need to kind of ask myself, do I have a responsibility to do this? I mean, every once in a while the answer might be yes, but in the past, like the times that I think about having done this, it's like, no, I didn't have a responsibility to do this. They didn't feel a responsibility to help me like that. You know, and I also often, you know, with the North Node in the fourth house, I often would help stand up for other people more than I would stand up for myself when necessary. So but I know that these things exist. I know that these traits in me exist. So, and it really has been the midpoint that's kind of helped me to see this, so that they can be integrated together. And actually it was during a transit to that midpoint and to my moon that things kind of really woke up for me, if you will. So definitely watch for transits to the midpoint as well. But yeah, I think yeah. If you want to leave in the comments, if you have this like an inconjunct in your chart, you want to talk about how it manifests for you, go for it. I'd love to hear from you. If you don't want to, that's fine too. But definitely pay attention to them if you see them in a natal chart, in your natal chart, in a natal chart for somebody that you're reading for, whatever. Don't leave them out. I would definitely bring them into play. I think they're very important. In my class that I'm teaching, that I just opened up last week, I will definitely be talking about the inconjunct for sure. This aspect will get talked about. The midpoints will get talked about too. I think they're very, very, very important. Again, very important for working through, especially some of the more challenging aspects like the inconjunct or the square, for sure. And I will also put where you can find that below, along with where you can find me if you want to find me somewhere else. Okay. I will see you all later.